Welcome to Short Movie Channel. Today's movie begins in the year 2039, during a time when the population is at an all-time high. This massive growth has led to a severe shortage of resources worldwide. Everyone knows that humanity is on the brink of extinction in just a short time. To address this crisis, the United Nations decides to implement a system to reduce population density by 5% in every country. Meanwhile, the United States introduces a program called the reduction system. This system involves extremely difficult tests designed to measure students' intelligence. Unfortunately, anyone who fails these tests is sentenced to death via a lethal chemical injection. Amid this chaos, we meet a girl named Lena, who is helping a student named Simon prepare for the reduction tests by explaining chemical equations to him so he can solve them. Despite her efforts, Simon struggles to understand, so Lena gives him a digital lens to wear during the test. This lens allows him to see the answers and hopefully pass. At the same time, another student named Blake sneaks out of his house to meet a girl named Ellie, who's waiting for him in her car. We learn that Ellie is his girlfriend. They talk about the reduction test starting the next day. Ellie is extremely nervous, but Blake reassures her, telling her she'll do great. Suddenly, one of Blake's father's guards shows up and takes him to his father's office. There, his father expresses anger at Blake for leaving the house on the eve of such an important test. He also orders him to stay away from Ellie, claiming she will be the reason for his failure. However, Blake brushes off his father's words, viewing him as selfish and only focused on his own ambitions, especially since his father is the mayor of Texas and is planning to run for president of the United States. The next morning, we see a large group of students gathered outside the university for the test. Before they can enter, security performs thorough inspections. Blake asks Lena for another digital lens to cheat on the test, but she tells him she doesn't have any extra ones. Lena stands in line with her friend Kellen, waiting for their turn to be searched. Suddenly, a security guard catches a student who has written answers to the test questions on his arm. The student tries to escape, but the guards catch him and execute him on the spot, following their strict laws. This incident terrifies the rest of the students, making them too scared to cheat or even talk. The students enter the exam hall, and the test begins. They have just 2 hours to complete it. Everyone is frantically trying to solve the difficult problems to pass. The test is so challenging that many students are visibly anxious. Within the first half hour, Lena manages to finish the entire test, but Kellen struggles, finding the questions nearly impossible. He starts to believe he'll fail and be sentenced to death. When the exam ends, the tests are graded immediately. The officials announce the results and list the names of students who failed. These students are escorted to the punishment room. This announcement leaves the remaining students terrified, worried that their names might be called at any moment. After the results are fully announced, the guards forcibly detain the students who failed. Some of them try to run, but the guards are too strong and capture them. In the end, we learn that Blake, Ellie, Lena, and Kellen are among the students who successfully passed the reduction tests. But suddenly, the guards call out Ellie's name, announcing that she is one of the students who failed the test. The moment Ellie hears her name, she collapses in distress. Shortly after, the security team arrives, apprehends her, and takes her to the punishment room. Blake quickly rushes to his father Dean's office, begging him to intervene and change Ellie's result to save her from execution, leveraging his position as the mayor of Texas. However, Dean refuses to help her, explaining to Blake that the rules are applied equally to all students, and then slams the door in his face. Frustrated and furious, Blake sprints to the punishment room to save Ellie. He starts fighting the guards, trying to give Ellie a chance to escape. Unfortunately, the guards overpower him, and Ellie is arrested while Blake is subdued and detained. A year passes since that tragic day, and with just 24 hours remaining until the exams for the new year, a group of new students enters the system, including Corinne, Lina's younger sister. While Lina is sitting with Corinne at home, there's a knock at the door. Birch, their teacher, enters. Birch has been helping Lina and Corinne with everything since their mother passed away, doing her best to make up for everything they've lost. Despite Birch's support, Lina feels a deep sense of anxiety about Corinne's upcoming exams, fearing she might fail and face the same fate as Ellie. Meanwhile, Blake is in his room recording a video addressed to his father. In the video, Blake declares that he intends to deliberately fail this year's exam as an act of revenge for Ellie. The next morning, Lina takes Corinne to her preschool. At the preschool, cartoons are shown to the kids, explaining the global problems the Earth is facing during this period, such as overpopulation. The children are also taught about the laws implemented by different countries to reduce population density. These laws include measures like allowing couples to have only one child, and if they exceed this limit, the entire family is executed. In some countries, senior citizens are executed because they consume excessive resources while contributing little to society. In the United States, different rules have been adopted, such as intelligence tests for students. These laws are enforced even on preschoolers, aiming to eliminate underperforming students and preserve only the intelligent ones who are believed to be capable of leading society toward a better future. When the exam day comes, the teacher in charge of the kindergarten children leaves feeling very upset because she's worried about the kids who might fail the test and what might happen to them. When the results are announced, Corinne is overjoyed because she passed the test, thanks to her sister Lina, who had been helping her study diligently. Meanwhile, Lina is also among the students taking the exam alongside her friend Kellen. As for Blake, he follows through with his plan to fail himself on purpose, just as he said he would. However, when Madison informs Dean about his son Blake's results, he gets furious, knowing that Blake might face execution due to his poor grades. Without hesitation, Dean calls Mason, the exam official, and demands that he swap Blake's grades with those of another successful student to save his son from execution. Reluctantly, Mason agrees and swaps Blake's grades with Lina's, as she had scored well. When the guards announce the students' results, Lina is shocked by her score and feels certain something is wrong because those grades don't reflect her true abilities. Even the other students are surprised, as Lina is known to be the best among them. The guards come to arrest Lina, and Birch steps in to defend her, explaining that Lina is an excellent student. Unfortunately, her plea changes nothing because the grades cannot be altered. Birch gives Lina an access card that will allow her to unlock doors and escape from the university. At the same time, Blake is also confused and cannot understand how he passed the test despite not writing anything. The students who passed are celebrating, while Dean makes a televised speech announcing his candidacy for the presidency of the United States. He asks for the public's support and highlights the policies used to control population growth. He also boasts that America has surpassed other nations in education and reduced crime rates by 26% recently. During the celebration, Blake remembers what happened with his test results earlier that day. He quickly leaves the party and heads to the university, where he knocks out a security guard and gains easy access to the surveillance room. Meanwhile, the other guards are with Lina and her classmates who failed the exam, forcing them to change into sterile clothing in preparation for their execution with chemical substances. Suddenly, Blake cuts the power to the university, giving the students a chance to escape. Some try to seize the opportunity but fail, and the guards recapture them. Lina is the only one who manages to escape, thanks to the access card Birch gave her. A short time later, Mason arrives at the execution room to ensure all the students are accounted for. When the count is reviewed, they realize Lina is the only one missing. They begin searching for her while Blake finds Lina and helps her evade the guards. The two discuss the forged results, with Lina insisting that her grades were tampered with. Blake knows the truth but hesitates to reveal it. Together, they crawl through a ventilation shaft and follow the cables leading to the main control room, where all the test data is stored. Their goal is to access the computer and uncover the real results. Meanwhile, the university guards block anyone from entering until the power issue is resolved. The news spreads across the media, causing parents to express outrage at the officials as they worry about their children still trapped inside. Dean contacts Mason to check if Blake is still in the university, or if he managed to leave. At the same time, Dean tries to control the situation to prevent it from escalating further. At that moment, Blake was inside the ventilation shafts, struggling to move around. but he was strong enough to leap into the swimming pool. At the same time, Lena jumped in after him to rescue him quickly. After pulling him out of the water, she leaned in to check if he was okay. She assumed he couldn't breathe, so she began performing CPR on him until he finally regained consciousness and started breathing again. Afterward, the two of them headed toward the lockers to change into different clothes, even though they weren't theirs. Then, they wandered through the university hallways until they reached the room containing the results server. Suddenly, the key slipped out of Lena's hand and fell to the ground. Unfortunately, it landed right in front of a guard. However, the guard didn't notice it and kept walking. They started devising a plan to retrieve the key. They decided to go to the science lab to grab a rope and a magnet to pull the key back. While they were in the lab, the guard heard a noise and came to investigate. Lena quickly climbed back into the ventilation shaft, while Blake hid inside the lab. After Lena got out, she went to use the magnet to retrieve the key. Suddenly, one of the guards noticed the key being pulled by a rope, which startled Lena. But to her shock, the guard who picked up the key was actually Blake. He had knocked out a real guard earlier and taken his uniform. About half an hour later, Mason discovered what was happening. Mason began investigating to find out who gave Lena an access card. During the inquiry, Birch managed to steal her colleague's access card without him noticing. When Lena's turn came, no one suspected her since she had the card on her. Meanwhile, the person whose card was stolen was so angry that he fainted. At the same time, Blake entered the server room with Lena, and they accessed the computer. But they discovered that Mason had set a complicated password. Blake started decoding it using his hacking skills. Once they succeeded, they were able to view the student results. Lena was shocked to find out she scored 98%, yet she was labeled a failure. Blake, on the other hand, scored only 15% but was marked as a pass. Lena continued digging through the results from previous years and found out that Ellie scored 88% last year but was also labeled a failure and sentenced to execution. She realized the entire system was rigged, and Dean was the one manipulating the results as he pleased. Quickly, Lena sent the result files to Kellen. Suddenly, the power came back on, and Mason saw everything happening through the security cameras. When Lena noticed the cameras in the room, she tried to escape, but Mason managed to catch her. Meanwhile, Blake, disguised as a guard, was with the students being held captive. A confrontation broke out between Blake and the guards, ending with his identity being revealed when they removed his mask. Meanwhile, Kellen reviewed the leaked results and was stunned by the level of corruption. The news reached the media, putting Dean at risk of losing his position. Fearing the consequences, Dean claimed Mason was solely responsible for everything. To prove his innocence, he ordered the execution of all the students who failed, including his own son, Blake. Lena and Blake were taken with the other failing students to the execution room. Mason contacted Dean for approval, and Dean ordered the law to be enforced. At that point, Dean is compelled to enforce the laws to maintain his position and orders the execution of the students who truly failed, while releasing Lena. Lena runs to thank Bellick for everything, but then the guards take her away as the process of injecting the failing students begins. Later, we see Lena outside, embracing her sister after narrowly escaping. That same night, we observe the students who were injected with the substance, and discover that it was merely a sedative. They are transported to a facility where it's revealed that the government is doing this to increase the workforce and reduce the population. Below, we find that Ellie is still alive, bringing great joy to Bellick. This brings us to the end of today's summary. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel.